to live in the blessings and the joy and the peace that God promises, guess what we must do? We must acknowledge our need for Him. So we have the word faithful, we have the word obedient, and we have the term faithfully dependent. It's good to see each of you here tonight. So, often the soul's imbalances and the problematic problems that compound, or the complications that compound from life and the imbalances of the soul result from sin, are usually because we rely too much on ourselves. The blessings come from peace, from God's strength and joy, all of these things that we need for an optimistic outlook for the future. They come from what I call tonight being accountably reliant upon God's needs, upon our needs from and for God. Accountably reliant. What does that mean? There is a chart that you may have to screenshot later after I do the trim up work about minute 3, so that you can see some details. The credit for this was on the bottom right of the screen, and it was too small for me to make out every word. But it's a nice chart that was produced about maybe 3 or 4 months ago, and it was targeting the initial panic, fear reaction to the COVID concerns. And now it can just be, as you've seen, I've retitled it in white, Perspective Options During Difficult Times. And that could just be 2020 for some people. And then you have initial knee-jerk reactions. And some of these I'd like to read to you. Let's see, within the fear zone. Within the fear zone, going counterclockwise for most of my time, some people get mad very easily because they're unsettled, uncertain. Forwarding all messages because of what they think someone might need to hear, or if it stings them, they want to help spread what they perceive to be truth without checking the real facts first. And maybe complaining frequently, spreading emotions that only fuel the fear and or anger, and that's not a good thing in that fearful zone. So when you're going through a difficult time, there are degrees or levels, spheres of reaction and levels of maturity for sure. Again, going counterclockwise, let's look at the learning zone. This is when you know that there are good things to do, but you don't quite know what direction it will take you when you do what's right. This is a good sphere to grow in trust. It says things like, recognize that we are all trying to do our best, and that is to say, each with a sincere heart, we would hope. Some have not good intent, but most do. And information, education can help guide and direct that. Evaluate information before spreading something false, and even if it's true, ask, is it beneficial or prudent at this time? And oftentimes that doesn't meet the second filter. And then you see becoming aware of the situation and how to think. Let yourself develop before, so that you can be more ahead of the situation and in the authority to speak. Identify my emotions before you react. It is good if you can develop in this discipline to know why you feel like you do. That's really good for your own benefit. Most people don't. They react and they live in that sphere their whole life. But to learn why you're thinking like you are, what's the catalyst that has caused you to feel like you do, and then it just moves on in a good way from there. Awareness, self-actualization. And at the very top, you see, no, that's not the one. This is the one. I start to give up what I cannot control. That is a theme that made me want to display this chart, and it will come into play in this Sunday's lesson as well, but more so tonight. A lot of people have the things like anxiety and worry and fear within the sphere of what we want to control, and we realize that we can't. So what do we do with that indecision? God's truth fills the gap and supplies me what I need to help me think like I should. So my whole class tonight, or the arrangement of verses and points, is really just to help us think the truth that we know, but forcibly telling ourselves to make sure we exercise a discipline of focusing on it. And I've had to pray this prayer in the song today. I said, Lord, I'm going to be praying, I'm going to be teaching things that I need to apply in my own life. Help me not feel hypocritical in the process. I need to practice this. So over the past week, I've been blessed with the motivation for forced application, even more so. So I can tell you this works. It's not easy, but there are some hard truths that once embraced, you can then just submit to the blessings that God wants to give. And outside the learning zone, and this is simultaneous, is the growth zone. There are many good things here, like adapting to changes, staying happy as an emotional state in the midst of chaos, being empathetic and appreciative to others, living in the present and focusing on the future. Wow, how much would you put a price on that? And then at the very top, thinking of others and how to help them. This is a great chart, and it means a lot that I was able to share it. I hope it helped you. But God, what I need today, right now, is present confidence for the future. God, I've been whipping myself into a frenzy, thinking my thoughts. I need to think your thoughts, and I need your strength. Guide me, channel my thoughts, my directions, my actions. I am in need of you. So, it's good to be concerned about many things, but it's good to know that God is above everything that you're concerned about. So, in this, remember that we can pray to the God, just like the psalmist prayed, with confidence in the God who not only is, but the God that is a creator, source, the judge, the king, the rock, fortress, mighty tower, the shepherd. He is near, and he is love. That's the God I want to go to in prayer, so that I can have the help that he assures me I can have. So when you see his children suffering from anxiety and worry and stress and fear and trepidation and all of these things that we could mention, those are understandable emotions, but in that moment, what do? Do we stay in that fear zone, or do we allow ourselves to learn and grow? Well, again, before practical application, you have to know the truth. So we're going to try to balance out both tonight. Phase 1 of our class tonight, phase 1. Take notes if you want to, but primarily, again, the verses are the key, whether they're on the screen or not. I'll mention them. Psalm 33, verse 11. Phase 1 talks about present hope and what will give us genuine confidence. I don't want to live in la-la land. I don't want to stick my head in the sand. I want genuine hope. And what is it? God's unchanging and faithful nature is one source by which I can have confidence that I can face every day. Thank you. Psalm 33, verse 11 says, and my notes, the way I quickly type them, are subject as well to the numbers anyway, copy paste, but then type the numbers, subject to typos. The counsel of the Lord stands forever, the plans of his heart from generation to generation. It's amazing that throughout all of history, God's truth, God's ability to be faithful to his word stays the same, unchanging, faithful in all of his ways. Psalm 78, that's a big psalm. But it talks about God's kindness to the rebellious Israel. Grace is seen in this case in his mercy towards them, because Israel was rebellious, but God was faithful to his covenant. And I say again, may we never rebel against God's will. However, as we pursue the path of righteousness, we're striving for holiness, yes, the imputed righteousness or justification, but we also are stumbling along the way. So even still, we can go to God, who we know deals with his children today the same way. And I'm very thankful. That gives me the optimistic outlook. When you read the Old Testament and how God was literally carrying them, well, not literally, but metaphorically, carrying them out of danger and delivering them as on eagle's wings, that reminds me that that's the same God who's blessing us. One way or another, God will continue to look out for us. That gives me optimistic outlook. And we need to hear this stuff. Another source of genuine confidence is the covenant that God gives. Hebrews 9:15 says, "For this reason Jesus is the mediator of the new covenant, that since a death has taken place for the redemption of the transgressions that were committed under the first, those who have been called may receive the promise of eternal inheritance." Eternal redemption is found in Jesus because God covenanted with Israel, and it would be one that he, by his authority and power, would establish forever. In other words, when God says he's going to do something, he does it. That gives me confidence. I'm under that covenant. Did you know that? Hebrews basically tells us we have a better covenant because Christ fulfilled the old, and now we're under him. And if you have confidence and trust in Christ, then this is much more readily available for you to receive and apply. A lot of people need to build trust in Jesus before they apply this properly. But that's another lesson. God's election gives us confidence. We are those people. Modern day Israel are those who, under the heart and reign of Christ, respond to the gospel call and are immersed, of course, in Christ for the forgiveness and remission of sins. And God allows, or through God's power, through Christ, grafts us into the body, the church, the living organism. And then we become His incarnation on earth to carry out His will. We become then the fulfillment of the prophecy for God to reign over His people, Israel. He reigns over His people now. So the election, let's go back to Deuteronomy 7:6. This is a fascinating idea, and you can just look at it with your eyes. But from all the people on the face of the earth, God chose by His grace for Israel to be His people, to represent Him and to work His plan of redemption. God chose Israel, then provided them with everything they needed to trust Him. God calls all people to be in fellowship with His Son, wherein complete satisfaction takes place. And we're referencing here being holy. This is a journey called life on earth, where in the process of our experience of linear time and experience in studying God's Word, using His resources, encouraged by the people, that we become more like Him every day. And we should welcome that journey. And we're growing in different ways. And we all have to remember that. But 1 Thessalonians, I want to make a reference to 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 24. 1 Thessalonians 5:24. Faithful is He who calls you, and He always will bring it to pass. And I think about the promise of Romans 8:28. That's a good pair-up verse. If you're at one of the verses or the other, you can write 1 Thessalonians 5:24 or Romans 8:28. God's election of Israel back in the days of old and how He carried them through, fulfilled His promise, builds my trust in God's gracious dealings with His people now. That's you and I. I know that God is mindful. And that's one thing that when things don't maybe go like you want or expect, that's at least one truth you can come back to and say, I know that God is sovereign, knows more and is higher than I in every way. But I can know that God is aware of me. And that right there helps in my ignorance because of what I know. Here's another theme as we think about history. God's deliverances keeps us confident. God's deliverances keeps us confident. We could go over so many occasions of the Old Testament. Deuteronomy 7:18, God delivered them from Egypt. How many lessons and series of lessons could we preach on how great it is to show God's marvelous power and wisdom when it seems like you're at a dead end, and God says, no, like Psalm 77, I believe it is, your footprints weren't seen because it goes right through the water. Incredible, isn't it? Well, He delivered them from more numerous things like horses and chariots and enemies of peoples all around them. Deuteronomy 20. Joshua chapter 1 verse 5. God delivered Israel from being without a leader. Joshua taking over. And then He delivered them from giants in 1 Samuel 17:37. I love the phrase there, just don't that we sometimes tag on it. Don't mock God's people and don't mock God. God's deliverance of the nation of Israel produces trust that He will deliver us because we are God's people. Romans 8:31, I like this passage. Our confidence that God will deliver us, but from what? From sin, holding nothing against us, come what may. This is incredible. Romans 8:31 through 39, that whole chapter, really, but particularly verses 31 and following. We have, because of all these things, confidence in the return and the day of what we call judgment, but for us of reward and award for sharing in His glory. If we're His children, we can look forward to that. I think that once we, I don't know how time would be measured in that moment, but if for a millisecond, be so awed by His glory that we will, like Isaiah's response and all the peoples who saw visions of God in some manifested way, to be just so overwhelmed and woe is me. You know, that reaction of woe is me. But then right after that, and maybe during, we'll be reminded of God's grace and I'm His child. And then we will realize what we're experiencing right now, the hope of trusting in Him, relying in Him, and then in that moment experiencing all that He has promised us, and we have confidence right now that we are assured of heaven and that day. So these are things that are really good, but let's continue. Genuine confidence. And point number 5 is God's Word. God's Word gives us confidence. Very briefly, I'd like to read, and we can turn there to Isaiah 55. Isaiah 55, verses 10 and 11. Confidence in God. For as the rain and the snow come down from heaven and do not return there without watering the earth and making it bear and sprout, and furnishing seeds to the sower and bread to the eater, so will my word be which goes forth from my mouth. It will not return to me empty or void, without accomplishing what I desire and without succeeding in the matter for which I sent it. God never tries something and fails. You think about that? Now, if he leaves it up to people, I might let him down, but that's not what we're saying. God never sets out to do something and fails. It's impossible for that to happen. He knows all. He's omniscient. He's all-powerful. And that means he knows the right way initially, and he has the means and resources to carry it out, and the wisdom in his infinite state to when to do it. It's incredible to try to fathom or just worship the mind of God because of who he is. But God's Word is what we have to guide us through this linear experience of time. And it is what is for the soul the nourishment that provides food so that it can accomplish in us its original intent. I like that phrase that one of our speakers said, it's not that we become perfect, it's that we are becoming complete. We are continually completed to maturity is what he was emphasizing. I've often said it a little differently, that it's not that we are perfect, it's that we are being perfected as the Word accomplishes its intent to mature us. And that's a beautiful concept, the Word of God. And there are 2 pair of verses, Psalm 130, verse 5. And I'll read it. And then right after that, just mention Romans 15:4. Actually, it comes together. So, quote, for whatever has written in early times was written for our instruction, so that, and let's pair up ideas here, so that through perseverance and the encouragement of the Scriptures we might have hope. An Old Testament verse, a New Testament verse, it's the same God, same intent. God's Word gives us what we need. And guess what? If we're not studying the Word, we won't have those joys, those blessings of inner peace. Michael, how can you be so, and then ... regardless of how I appear, apparently so calm, grounded, whatever the case might be? Well, again, I've had to study everything that I'm teaching and apply it, and it's good for me. It was good for me to, for this class, review all the points that maybe I'd heard somewhere in the past. But Michael, review those points. Remind yourself of the truth in the Word, because that gives us confidence. You can't enjoy the peace that comes from a truth that you forgot. So review the truth. Stay in the Word. And then, what else gives me genuine hope and confidence? It's God's promises of, God promises us, where I was looking at the reverse. That's accurate on the screen. God's promises. God's promises give us confidence. And this is only a teaser trailer for next week for Lucian's class. A lot of great points that he will bring out in regards to this. But I want to go back to Joshua 24:14. Before Joshua died, he reviewed God's faithfulness and goodness. And he reviewed what God had done in the days of Abraham and Moses and now Joshua. And Joshua was wanting the people to know what they are to do going forward. You can't go backwards. You can only go forward. Joshua is a great leader, and he says, here's what you need to know. He said, now behold, today I am going the way of all the earth. I'm about to die. And you know in all your hearts and in all your souls that, here it is, not one word of all the good words which the Lord your God spoke concerning you has failed. I love those last words of great leaders like this. He says, all have been fulfilled for you. Not one of them has failed. Ooh, that's good. Oh, that's good. If I was, I'm expressing myself of how I really am in the office. Sometimes I would read something, I was like, ooh, that's good. I need to use that. Good stuff. So after all that we've talked about, here are some application points if you're taking notes at this point of the lesson. For phase 1, God's unchanging and faithful nature assures us that his everlasting covenant, which calls all people to him for deliverance from sin, granting access to him, will be kept. I can have confidence in that. God has given his word and his promises to build trust and establish our confidence in him. God has given us everything we need to have confidence in him. So if I don't have confidence in him, something's wrong. Christian confidence originates with God. So how's your relationship with God? If it needs to, and it always needs to improve, but how is it right now? I hope this class inspires you to get closer to God. How? Through the Word, and get to know the will he has given to us. And we're here on a Wednesday night, so I hope this is encouraging to you. Those are some application points that makes a huge, huge difference. We have phase 2. And we'll have time to go over a few of these points rather quickly. I'm looking forward to that. Phase 2 is present peace. Present peace. Why must we accept his present peace? It's because, and some verses are on the screen, I want you to think realistically, and that means realistically, optimistically here about this, about a tremendous truth that Jesus spoke in John 14, 1 through 4. We get so used to hearing what he has promised us that what if we didn't ever know about it? What if we hear for the first time that God has allowed a way and by his grace has given a plan whereby we, when he returns, can spend an eternity with him forever? Our life is to glorify God. If I were to die, that would be the purpose of my life anyway, and if that were the end of my existence. But he says, you know what? I'm going to award that faith in a way that you could have never dreamed. You can be with me forever. Did you know that eternity is going to be your ever-present state? Everything here is temporary. That doesn't say to ignore current problems, but it is helping you always keep them in perspective. It's not going to last. We will all at one point experience the fullness of the blessings in heaven. And that truth encourages me to be optimistic through present trials. Confidence comes from Jesus' providence and preparation for his followers. He says later in that chapter, peace I leave with you, my peace, not as the world. He says, don't worry about that. Don't let your heart be troubled and don't be fearful. Confidence comes from the peace that Jesus gives and from his power by which he overcame the world. John 16:33, Jesus says, these things I have spoken so that in me you have and may have peace. In the world you will have tribulation, but take courage. I have overcome the world. Wow. He overcame the world. What about me? To ask that question, we missed the point. We're in Jesus. He's overcome the world. He's more powerful. He shows us that he will carry us. We're in his hands if we're trusting in him. Psalm 9 as a bonus, verse 10. And those who know your name, Lord, will put their trust in you, for you, O Lord, have spoken, or let me say, have not forsaken those who seek you. Those who seek you. God has given us his will. And for those who seek, they will find. And we are to share, of course. But the godly have numerous reasons to be confident. Even those who are cast down, the psalmist in Psalm 42, verse 5, his bonus, 42, verse 5 says, why are you in despair, O my soul? He's talking to himself. He's so honest and candid. Why are you in despair, my soul? Have you ever been in despair? Well, of course we have. Over the past year, and for reasons that may or may not surprise you, but different maybe, just despair. Lord, what do you do in those moments? You go to God, don't you? He's the source. And when it doesn't seem like you have an answer or that it will happen instantly, you say, Lord, here's how I'm feeling. You already know, but I'm going to lay it out. I need your help. And then he continues, feeling as though he's disturbed God and God is angry with him, but he's always hearing. So he turns it around. Hope in God, for I shall again praise him for the help of his presence. I love the Psalms. They give you the answers to the solutions of whatever you're feeling. That's it. Realize God is there. Who is there? God is there. And everything you know about him. So let's apply this. After reading these verses, present peace, taking a little different approach than what you might be used to. Why should I accept his presence? Because suffering is inevitable. That's why. So accept the encouragement to be confident. Like from Peter, 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 10, 1 Peter 5:10, after you have suffered for a little while, the God of all grace, who called you to his eternal glory in Christ, will himself perfect, confirm, strengthen, and establish you. When you're feeling like nothing, you need to go back to 1 Peter 5:10 and remember what God will do. This is a moment in time where you're giving your soul up to God in prayerful petition, but then you remember what he's going to do, and it's a promise. Suffering is temporary, but suffering makes a Christian strong, firm, and steadfast. And then I should accept this encouragement because the ungodly will often win battles on a sin-stained earth. But the godly will overcome all of that. How do I know that? Based on the truth that I trust and the relationship developed with Christ. We love souls. I want to say this. We love souls. We don't want any soul lost. It doesn't please God for the death of the wicked, because justice then kicks in. But God, through Christ, has shed his blood incarnate so that all sins could be forgiven of. All sins could be redeemed. It's a gift in that sense to be received. But it is a fact that not all will do that. So, with a very careful line, and I mean very careful line, I think it's safe to say, especially when you read some of the Psalms and more recent new songs, the mature soul can rejoice when justice and righteousness wins earthly battles in the present, anticipating his return. So whenever you feel out of control and that there are powers of negativity and evil greater than you and maybe your influence, that's a good thing to realize that God's in control. Maybe we've never been. But just go back to the ultimate victory. The ultimate victory. I would love to read a little bit about King Assyria and Sennacherib. But you know the story. 2 Chronicles 32. Read 2 Chronicles 32 and just see how, and in the context of Hezekiah when he says, don't be just, be strong and courageous. Do not fear or be dismayed. Enemies all around. And they're coming in, of course, and he was trying to protect Jerusalem. He was smart, but he said, don't be upset or dismayed by the king of Assyria, nor because of all the horde that is with him. For the one with us is greater than the one with him. With him is only an arm of flesh, but with us is the Lord our God to help us and fight our battles. I just love Old Testament accounts like this. And you can continue reading of how the Lord, in a way that you could have never predicted, wiped out the enemy. Just incredible. Just incredible. So, God overcame the ungodly. The God who overcame the ungodly will also overcome all evil. And I think I've mentioned this in a few sermons, in a kind of a quotable quote, elusive here and there. But I do rejoice in the fact that no unrighteousness will go untended to. I take joy in that. Not the death of the wicked, but that God's a just God and that righteousness and glory will have its day. And I want to be on the proper side of that. So accept the encouragement to be confident, as I'm encouraging you hopefully tonight, because good works through many people are taking place to bless many people. You're not alone. And God works in amazing ways. Read the story of Esther. Who would have predicted the unfolding of those events at just the right time? Incredible. Only God. I want to be a willing participant in God's will. I want to be in whatever God's blessing, but I can only do what I can do. And hopefully can do more. I say you hope to have more influence through God's help, but realize your limitations. And then take joy in knowing that encouragement is coming through so many people, particularly God's people. Pair up verses, 2 Corinthians 1:5, and then back to verse 4. 2 Corinthians 1:5 and 1:4. Interesting concepts here, and I'm just going to speak for the application for benefit. Let your eyes glare at some points there. The more we suffer, the more God comforts us, right? The more we suffer, God won't let us experience anything more than what we can handle, or that he will not help us bear. So, yeah, a lot of things will come our way bigger than us, and that's a good thing, so that we rely on God and need his help, and he will always help. And the more God comforts us, the more we're able to comfort others. We went through that. We can help in special ways. And that means we need to not only receive, but choose to keep giving that comfort and joy to others, so that if everyone else does that, which is God's way, it works for the whole body. Application, this may help you more than anything else because we kind of spell it out. For phase 2, present peace, God instructs us to be encouraged by our trust in God, of course. He instructs us. Okay, so he's told us how to do it, and he told us that we have to do it. So let's do it. God will use sufferings to perfect believers. God will overcome all the ungodly. He will comfort the righteous. God teaches his faithful people to avoid misplaced confidence and encourage faithfulness that produces confidence. Those are some points from the 2 Chronicles 32 I just summarized, but don't put your trust in some of this other stuff. Be smart, be a good steward. God rewards that in his own way. But after you do what you're commanded to do, you really just stand back and think, yep, that was, to God be the glory. Because there's no way we can do that without him. Phase 3, and I'm looking at the time. What to do? Because of my next class, in 3 Wednesdays from now, which means after Lucian's 2 Wednesdays of teaching by schedule, and then mine coming back, adversity, uncertainties, and the power of prayer. I'm going to show you some key points, and then reserve the right to preach this someday. It's a whole nother lesson. Here we go. 3 points. Phase 3, joyous future hope. Past, present, and future. How does a Christian experience persistent joy while facing the future with confidence and hope? Well, obviously I need to have confidence in God. Here are some points from Psalm 56. God relieves our fears. God cares enough about our sorrows that he records every one of them. When I read that, that really hit me. And we give God the praise for the confidence we have. Now, carefully think about that. We can rejoice in our decision to follow God, but really every blessing comes from him. God rescues people from death to walk in the light. We want security, and then God is our refuge. We want security. We want our needs emotionally, physically provided for. Then who else will we ever go to but the one who promises all and has created all and can do all? Who else? Confidence in God is a decision that we must make. And in facing the future with confidence, this is interesting wording. Face the future confident in what God can do. We don't know what God will do, but we can have confidence in our prayers when we express our preferenced outcome, because we know that we've expressed ourselves, God hears, God answers, and ultimately in God's sovereignty, we don't know what will happen, but we know that something will happen, and we know our ultimate victory. So we don't know what God will do, but we know that God will do. And maybe that's a way to conclude the class better than what was on the paper. Yeah, as you see, we've got a lot more stuff. Oh, Isaiah 12. That's good stuff. But we don't have time for that. Not right now. Okay, looking here. Yeah, I'm going to have to preach this someday. It bless the whole congregation. Application, put confidence in God. God alone can do all things, what is needed for mankind. He provides life, deliverance, security, hope, and he cares. He alone provides what we need, a future beyond this life. And his grace has given us love, eternal comfort, good hope, genuine. And his word reveals how to live and be pleasing to him. Wow, great stuff. I'm excited to know that this is now going to be, if all the recordings went well, online. And for you to view it again later, screenshot some of these points and take them down on your own. But thanks for letting me teach these last 2 weeks, and then Lucian takes over, and I love his style, and looking forward to your receiving the blessing too for that. And I don't want to give too much away, more than I already have, but I'm looking at the tentative lineup, and we've got a lot of great topics to discuss with, again, practical advice of how to put it into practice in a year that challenges us in so many ways, but really every day of life we need to practice these principles. I have